The auditorium was already buzzing when the principal leaned into the microphone and called it just a harmless joke. A few students laughed. Some looked away, and one boy stood frozen backstage, his violin trembling in his hands. He had practiced for months for this moment, not for applause, not for fame, but to prove he belonged in a place that had quietly told him he didn't. When the joke spread through the school halls, it wasn't just about music anymore. It was about who gets taken seriously and who doesn't. That night, when he stepped under the bright stage lights, no one expected what would happen next. By the time the final note faded, the same room that once echoed with laughter sat in stunned silence, some fighting back tears. How did a single performance turn humiliation into something the entire school would never forget? Malik Thompson had always been quiet, but not invisible. At 16, he moved through the halls of Westbridge High with his violin case pressed close to his side, like armor. While other students rushed to practice or crowded around cafeteria tables, Malik spent his afternoons in the music room, fingers gliding across strings until the notes felt like breathing. Music was the one place where he didn't have to explain himself. At home, his mother worked double shifts to keep the lights on, reminding him that talent was a gift, but discipline was survival. Malik carried both. He practiced before sunrise. He stayed late after school. He earned first chair in the orchestra, even when whispers followed him out of auditions. Westbridge was proud of its arts program. Trophies lined the glass cases. Posters promised opportunity for everyone. But pride can sound different depending on who's listening. Sometimes it came wrapped in compliments that didn't feel like compliments. Sometimes it sounded like surprise, like he was an exception to an unspoken rule. When the school announced a solo spotlight performance for the spring assembly, Malik saw it as his moment, a chance to let the music speak louder than the murmurs. He signed up without hesitation. What he didn't know was that not everyone believed he belonged at center stage, and one careless remark from someone in power was about to test more than just his talent. The first time Malik heard the comment, it didn't even reach him directly. It slipped through the hallway like smoke. 2 students were whispering near the lockers. One of them snorted and said the principal had laughed during rehearsal sign-ups, said the solo spotlight was ambitious, said it would be interesting to see if Malik could handle something that demanding. Then came the line that stuck. It wasn't like this was some talent show joke. A joke. By lunchtime, the word had spread. Some repeated it playfully. Others said it with a shrug, as if it meant nothing. But to Malik, it meant everything. Because he had been in that rehearsal room. He had seen the tight smile, heard the slight pause before approval, felt the weight of being evaluated twice as hard. The next day at practice, the atmosphere shifted. A few classmates avoided eye contact. One asked if he was nervous about messing up in front of the whole school. Another suggested, too casually, that maybe a simpler piece would be safer. Safer for whom, he wondered. Malik chose a piece that demanded precision and emotion, one that rose from a whisper to a storm. It wasn't flashy. It was powerful, and it required complete control. Rehearsals grew tense. Each time he played, he could feel eyes measuring him, not just his tempo or technique, but whether he deserved the spotlight at all. When he finished a run-through, the silence in the room didn't feel supportive. It felt skeptical. Then came the assembly program draft. His name was misspelled. Not once. Twice. Other soloists had full bios, achievements, accolades, glowing descriptions. Malik had one short sentence. Violin performance by M. Thompson. As if shrinking his name made him easier to overlook. When he asked about it, the response was smooth and dismissive. It was just an oversight. Just formatting. Just a mistake. Just. That word again. The afternoon before the performance, Malik stayed late in the auditorium to rehearse alone. The stage lights were off, but he stood where they would hit him the next day. He imagined the rows, filled with students, teachers, the principal seated front and center. His fingers trembled, not from fear of the music, but from the pressure pressing in from every direction. If he failed, it wouldn't just be his mistake. It would confirm every quiet doubt that had followed him down those halls. If he succeeded, would it even matter? He drew the bow across the strings, and the sound echoed into the empty room. Tomorrow, there would be no empty seats, no second takes, just him, the violin, and a school that had already decided what he was supposed to be. The auditorium was full. Rows of students leaned back in their seats, half interested, waiting for the assembly to end. Teachers lined the walls. The principal sat in the front row, arms folded, expression unreadable. When Malik's name was announced, again shortened, again rushed, scattered applause drifted through the room. Not excitement, not anticipation, just politeness. He stepped into the light anyway. For a split second, the whispers returned. A cough, a stifled laugh somewhere in the back. The memory of that word, joke, rang louder than the applause ever could. His hands felt cold as he lifted the violin to his chin. The bow hovered above the strings. This was the moment they expected him to confirm their doubts. Instead, he began. The first note was soft, fragile. It barely floated past the first few rows. But then it deepened, rich, steady, unshaking. The melody unfolded slowly, pulling the room with it. Conversation stopped. Programs lowered. Heads tilted. Malik closed his eyes and let everything pour through the strings. The months of practice before sunrise, the swallowed comments, the polite smiles that cut deeper than insults. Every time he had been treated like a question mark instead of an answer. The music swelled. It wasn't just a performance anymore. It was defiance. It was proof. It was pain given a voice. By the time he reached the crescendo, the auditorium felt different. Charged, electric. The same students who had laughed were sitting forward now. A teacher near the aisle pressed a hand to her mouth. Someone in the back wiped at their eyes. In the front row, the principal's posture had changed. Arms no longer folded, expression no longer amused. The final note rang out, strong, unwavering, and then dissolved into silence so complete it felt sacred. No one moved. No one laughed. Because in those last few seconds, the joke had become undeniable truth. For a heartbeat, the silence held. Then the auditorium erupted. Not polite applause, not forced encouragement. It was the kind of standing ovation that rises from somewhere deeper than pride. Students were on their feet. Teachers were clapping with tears in their eyes. The same hallway that had carried whispers now carried one clear message: respect. Malik lowered his violin slowly. His hands were still shaking, but not from fear anymore. This time it was release. In the days that followed, something shifted. His full name appeared on the school website. The program was corrected. The principal addressed the assembly again, this time with careful words about misunderstandings and underestimating potential. It wasn't a full apology, but it was no longer a joke. Yet what mattered most wasn't the applause or the correction. It was the quiet conversations that began afterward. Students admitting they had laughed. Teachers reflecting on assumptions they didn't realize they carried. Younger black students stopping Malik in the hallway just to say he made them feel seen. Because this was never just about one performance. It was about how easily talent can be dismissed when it comes in a different package. How often excellence is treated as surprise instead of expectation. How many young voices shrink themselves to avoid becoming the punchline. Malik didn't just play a song that day. He exposed something uncomfortable. And discomfort is where change begins. But here's the question that lingers long after the music fades. Why did it take a flawless performance to prove what should have been recognized from the start?